Hello everybody and welcome to our virtual Raptology program. We were originally going to have this program back in March, early March, and the weather got bad, and then obviously we weren't able to reschedule with the shutdown. So we decided to bring you a virtual program. We are working with Joan Schnabel out of Iowa City. Her nonprofit organization is called Raptology. We've worked with her before, but we wanted to bring this program to you guys. This is part of our Iowa DNR Water Trails program. So this is one of 10 programs that we're working with the Iowa DNR to put on and encourage people to get out and explore the water trail along the Des Moines River in Van Buren County. Difficult to do this year, but this is one way to kind of share about the wildlife that you could find down there in Van Buren County, also up here in Jefferson County as well. So Joan is going to kind of go through the different birds that they have on site there, and then also talk about what it takes, what all the work that goes in behind the scenes to take care of those birds. So we're going to hand it over to Joan.
All right, well, welcome everybody. We're Raptology. We are licensed by U.S. Fish and Wildlife and Iowa DNR, and we are really happy to be doing this program because we haven't done any programs for months. We are mandated to do 12 programs a year by U.S. Fish and Wildlife, but this year I think they will not enforce that. So what I thought would be fun would be to see the birds, kind of the back scenes tour, because that's a lot of the questions that we get when we go out to do programs is, how do you keep the birds? What do they live in? Do they all live together? So I thought today we would give you a chance to sort of see how that works. All the birds that we have are birds that are non-releasable. That is a regulation by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And they are non-releasable either because they have too severe an injury to go back out in the wild, or because they are what is considered an imprint. They were handled by people when they were very, very young. Sometimes that was a mistake. Sometimes it was something that just had to happen because that bird needed medical care and got a little too familiar. So all these birds, all of them are flighted here, but they are all considered to be non-releasable. This is Sky. She is the first bird that I had on a permit. Sky is now old enough that last year she officially retired from U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So she still comes out and does programs, but she doesn't have to get 12 in a year. You can see when you look at her that thanks Sky, that her right wing is really drooping. It's held much lower than her left wing. That's the wing that was broken on this bird. That's why she's not releasable. She has some flight, but probably not enough to sustain herself in the wild. She's an older red tail. She has really dark eyes and less of a belly band than a young one would. She is a great horned owl. She is an imprint. She got injured when she was about a week old. She still had a little egg tooth on her bill, and so we know how old she was. She's 8. She fell from a tree and she bled internally, and when they got ready to send her out back to a nest, they checked her hemoglobin, and it was still very low, so they kept her longer, and basically she imprinted. That's not something you want to happen, but an imprint is when a bird sort of doesn't recognize what species it belongs to. She's from Regi, which is Raptor Education Group in northern Wisconsin, and her they have a foster dad, and they put her in with the foster dad to see if they could possibly return her to the wild, and the foster dad didn't want to have anything to do with that because by that time already she wasn't behaving like an owl should. Look at the feet on this bird. Look at those feet. Look at those talons. She's kind of an owly bird, but she's an owl. So she has cross vent in here, like we talked about in the other video, and she also has that shelter box where she can kind of be a little warmer, get herself out of the wind and get herself out of the rain. Although interestingly, lots of times when it's raining, these birds will be sitting on a perch enjoying the water. He is, we think, about 3 years old. He is a very bad droopy left wing. He didn't break it. We think he tangled with a power line or something. And so he has muscular problems with it. He's got a big wing droop. He can just fly so fast. Merlins are not generally found in Iowa. You would see them here on migration. The little falcon you're way more likely to see is the American kestrel. Merlins are like the Jack Russell Terrier of the bird world. They are feisty, they think they can take on anything, and they are super duper fast. Here's Gonzo Vulture. He's a turkey vulture. He is also an imprint. He's from Peterson, Minnesota. He's not injured at all. He's picked up young. Maybe people shouldn't have done that. Who knows? He again got moved to the Raptor Center at the University of Minnesota. Then he got moved to Marge Gibson up at Regi because again they have a vulture foster parent. But by that time he was way too imprinted. Vultures imprint really quickly because they're social. You know, if you go somewhere in the summer, you'll see lots of vultures hanging out together, and they migrate together in huge, huge numbers. Vultures really help us by keeping our environment clean. They can eat all kinds of terrible things and not get sick themselves. It just passes right through them. So they are really important sanitation engineers. I don't know if you can see in the picture, but he is iridescent. And if you look at the light on those black feathers, he's actually kind of shining blue. These guys fly with their wings in a dihedral up in the air like a V for vulture, and they are beautiful flighted birds. They are soaring birds. They ride the wind. They also have some really disgusting habits. If he's very unhappy, he will puke. And vulture puke is, no, you don't want that. They pee on their feet, which is not too pleasant. Some people think they do that to cool off. Some people think they do that to actually clean those feet. He has these huge opening in his beak. This is a bird that finds food by scent as opposed to by sight or by hearing. And these birds, the turkey vultures, do not take live prey. They are only carrion eaters. He will occasionally try something else, but he sure won't eat it. So you can see that big opening in his beak to let all those air molecules come in. This again because he was injured. He was picked up really early. We actually know the age on this guy. We don't know if he's male or female because the plumage on them is the same. Adults have that red head. He's got a lot of black fuzz on it yet, but I think that's just who he's going to be. He loves cell phones because what his favorite thing to do with the cell phone is to pick the case off. He likes that rubber, and he likes sticking that beak on anything that he can get. Any edge, you can see where part of my case is missing. That's due to Gonzo. This is Sarah Owl. Sarah is a 3-year-old, coming 3, Screech Owl. She's from Milton, Wisconsin. She is an imprint. She and her siblings were all found, I believe, on the ground when their nest was destroyed. very, very young, didn't have many feathers. She went to Diane Mahler at Who's Woods, and she imprinted. They tried to release her, and she actually didn't go away. She's a little bit nervous, and so she's doing this gullar fluttering. We're not going to keep her here real long. She's small, but she's quite powerful. She would eat birds in the wild. She could take moths in the wild. She could take a bat in the wild. They don't screech real often, but she has this lovely tremolo at night. She goes, ooh, ooh, and I hear her. So she has all the raptor characteristics of sharp talons, sharp beak, great eyesight. She can turn that head super fast, but not all the way around. And she is super camouflaged. If you put her next to a birch tree, she would just fade right into the trunk. She has kind of horns like a great horn. Those aren't her ears. Her ears are more behind her, alongside her eyes. The horns kind of tell you what your owl is feeling, and also help them a bit with camouflage. She's a little stressed because we've been walking around the Mews and taking pictures, and because it's hot. So I'm going to ask her to open her wings and see if she'll let me open her wings. Yeah, there you go. So you can see what she looks like. We'll give you one good close-up. And then we're gonna put Sarah back because we want to have great respect for these birds. And if these birds are signaling us that they're kind of done or they're kind of had it, then we're gonna respect that, and we're gonna put her back. Such a good Peregrine. Such a good girl. This is Rachel Peregrine. She's 5 years old. She's a Peregrine Falcon. She was hatched in Wisconsin, and somebody shot her. We have this bird because somebody shot her. Why would you shoot a falcon? What did you mistake this bird for? I don't know. But that's why we have her. Peregrines are doing really well now, but we almost lost them because of DDT and the thinning of their eggshells. These are apex predators. They mostly eat birds. They're native to this area, and their traditional spots are along the Mississippi River in their eyries. They also will nest on large buildings. There is a pair nesting, I believe, in Dubuque. And sharp, sharp talons. This, my friends, is the fastest animal on the planet. This bird gets clocked at about 200 to 240 miles an hour in a stoop, which is a dive. She is a great, great program bird. One of the funny things about her is that she has a water dish to bathe in, but she prefers that her personal servant come with a spray bottle and give her showers every day. Who knew? Peregrines have, in their nostrils, they have these little cone-shaped things. So when they're doing that super fast stoop, it can direct the air. Peregrines are basically bird eaters. They knock those birds right out of the sky and then fly down and catch them. She is a very messy eater. You can see this is last night's dinner of quail, which is what's usually on her menu. You can see leftover pieces of quail, which I will pick up tonight. You can see some of her feathers, which she's molting, and some of the quail feathers, which she is going to leave for me to pick up. So you can see, and again in the Mew, how there's cross ventilation, how there's screen, how there are the strips, and then this is her little area that is weatherproof, and she can get in when she wants. So this is Rachel Peregrine Falcon. She's got about a 4-foot wingspan, really stiff wings. Housing for birds. These are called Mews. That is spelled M-E-W-S. It's derived, I believe, from an old English word, and it refers to outdoor housing for raptors. I'm standing in front of Sky Redtail's mew. And so we build these to specifications by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And before you can even think of having a raptor, you have to build your mew and either have somebody come out and inspect it from Iowa DNR or send pictures from all around and all the dimensions into U.S. Fish and Wildlife and get it approved before you even think of getting a bird. We've been doing this for about 11 years. Sky's our first bird. And we have learned something every mew that we have built. We have made some sort of change in it because we're always getting things wrong and also always thinking of ways to improve things. You know, we want to build a mew that is safe and that also keeps this bird as comfortable as they can be. So we are really happy with this yard, that we have lots of trees that cast shadows and make things interesting. These birds are also able to see what goes on in the yard. They can look at the chipmunks, they can look at the squirrels. Wild birds will sometimes come into the yard for them to look at. And we have the usual cardinals, chickadees, sparrows. So we tried, that's kind of an enrichment for these birds. It's something for them to look at because they are captive. I don't know if you heard that sort of quacking sound. Did you hear that? That is a red-tailed hawk, and people rarely hear that. They hear that loud cree, but she also can quack like a duck when she's in the mood. All right. So, one of the things that is most important, I'm going to, yeah, I'm good here, is safety. So you want to keep these birds and yourself and everybody else really safe. So all of our mews have a double entry. Consider it like an airlock. And we always try to be incredibly careful about reminding ourselves that when you go in, you close that door before you open the other door, and vice versa. So this is our double entry, and this is the duplex mew. So both our big owl and our red tail go in off the same double entry, and everything locks or closes. So when you build an inside a mew, you want to make sure that there's nothing sharp that a bird can land on. You want to make sure that there's no small little space that a bird could catch a talon or could catch a jess, which is the little leather that hangs down off their legs. You want to put in multiple perches at different heights, but you don't want to perch so high that your bird can get where you can't get them. And you want different surfaces on the perches for the bottom of the bird's feet. Feet are hugely important for captive birds, and you want to make sure that you have texture on those perches. These mews have slats on them, and you want your slats to be proportional to the size of your bird. So the tiny birds, the slats are going to be much closer. Sarah Owl actually has some wire, some coated wire on hers. Bigger birds' slats can be further apart. Slats both keep birds in and also keep predators out. You know, raccoons could certainly be a predator here. When you build a mew, you trench the bottom, okay? And then you bury wire, you bury hardware cloth underneath, because you don't want a predator to come in from the bottom and be able to get up and into your birds. About a year ago in the Peregrine mew, I noticed that we had a chipmunk hole in the middle, and I thought, that chipmunk must have come up and been so surprised that he just went right back down again. But you do want to be careful for predators. Also, you'll notice that these mews are all screened, and they're screened with like a really fine mesh screen, because the gnats, and you'll see all of us here swatting them, are terrible. Their gnats are black flies. They may make life super miserable for birds. Birds in the wild have a worse time, especially the little fledglings who aren't really, or the birds that aren't flying yet, because when the gnats bite them, they can't get away. And so sometimes, like with the Decorah eagles or some of the peregrines, birds jump from their nest prematurely to get away from the gnats. Gnats also on those young birds can get through the feathers, and they suck enough blood that birds really get anemic. And so at this time of year, a lot of the rehabbers see birds like that, birds with those injuries, and they really make our birds miserable. And so sometimes, you know, we have a fenced in yard. Sometimes we'll put perches out and tie our birds out. But when the gnats are so bad, we don't even do that. Much as the birds might like it, they won't like it once the bugs come out. So other things you have to think about here when you're building a mew are temperature and weather. So we're going to stand in front of a different mew here. This is Gonzo turkey vulture. Hey, Gonz. This is a bird you can come pretty close, but you wouldn't want to get too close to him when you see his beak. So you got to think about the weather. So all the mews are constructed to have a place that is totally dry. And in big rainstorms, I always come out and check, but we've really done a good job on that. These birds have to be able to get out of the weather. So you'll see all of them have at least a couple places where two solid sides, or the back and one side, come together. And then all of them have about a third of the roof that is solid as opposed to slats. If you make too much of your roof solid, then when you get those really hot days, there's not much space for the air, for the heat to dissipate up. And when you put the screen on, which we have to, that also cuts your airflow a lot and makes that hard. Everybody's got water. They've got a pan of water in there that they can drink from or bathe in. Come winter, we would pull that out. They have the bottoms for drainage are covered with sand, and then pea gravel goes over the top of that, both for drainage and also it's a good surface for birds' feet, even though they don't spend that much time on the ground. If we get, in the winter, we put, for some of the birds, for our red tail, our great horned owl, and our screech owl, they are birds that are native here, and so we really don't winterize. For our other birds, we use this sort of plexiglass plasticky thing, and we put that up over the open areas. It allows some air to get in, but it cuts the wind, and that has worked pretty well. When we have terrible, terrible wind chill, or when we have super excessive heat, we actually will take some of the birds and put them into their travel crates and bring them in. Because we have other animals in the house, we try and be pretty careful. So they either go on the porch that's enclosed and we turn the air conditioner on, or they go down the basement. That doesn't happen very much. But the winter we had that 51-degree wind chill, and I couldn't get home because I was stuck somewhere else. A couple of the volunteers came over, crated birds that needed crating, and took them in the basement. Other things to consider on mews are cleanliness. Birds poop. Birds poop a lot. This is the champion pooper. And so we try and, at least once a week, but generally more often, we go in and we, just like cleaning your cat box at home, we get the bad stuff out. We change their water frequently. We pick up the poop. There's often lots of feathers, like on him, because it's molt. And so birds are always losing feathers. And probably about twice a year, we do pretty extensive cleanup where we wash everything down and really scrape stuff that we have to and whatever. So I guess the take home from this is birds are a lot of fun, and it's really wonderful to have them, and they are a lot of work. It never ends. There's always something falling apart on a mew or a new way we've thought to do it. The other thing that people often ask about also is downstairs in the house, which is now off limits because of COVID, we have a separate bird freezer where we have quail and gopher and rat occasionally and mice. And that's where we keep the food for the birds. My forbearing spouse is a vegetarian, so we have the people freezer and we have the bird freezer downstairs, and we try not to get them mixed up. So that's the backyard tour. So this is actually a triplex. Those two kind of go off the same. This is the home for our little Merlin. So this is a much smaller mew. He's going to be hard to see, but he's being pretty cooperative. This is Magic. Yeah, nice job, Magic. This is the turkey vulture. Here. This is Sarah Owl. This is a 3-year-old Screech Owl who's telling us to get lost. And then this is a Peregrine Falcon, and she's going to be a little bit hard to see from the outside. This is, I think, where are you? This is, I think, our nicest mew, probably the best one we built. She is way back in the place that she can go to kind of get out of whatever. And then the last bird, who is kind of our fussiest bird in terms of visitors. She's great on programs, but she's an owl, you know, and she thinks she should be sleeping and not disturbed. She's on the other side of the hawk here. Both our owls have shelter boxes in the mew, so they, besides just staying safe in the mew, they can also pop into that shelter box. Oh, she's down on the ground there. Can you see her? She's really camouflaged, even sometimes when I know where she is. When you clean up, you have to be a little careful with her. She's been known to cache food, which is what they would do in the wild. And so sometimes you find a 3-day-old gopher head with maggots on it that you've missed because she's tucked it somewhere where you can't see it. That's pretty charming. So this is Regi Owl. And that's our backyard tour. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and everybody stay safe.